All right, welcome back. So this is it, the final explainer in our series on Janita Okoro, and we're bringing it all together. We're going to follow Janita as she faces the ultimate test of her work, shifting from a hands-on practitioner to a true strategic leader. And we're going to unpack the incredible toolkit she built to get there. Let's dive right into her final test. Okay, so picture this. The high-stakes midpoint review of Janita's project is about to begin. The big framework document has been sent out, and this is the reply she gets from the external reviewer, Constance Everly. I mean, that line is just dripping with professional intimidation, right? That's not praise, that's a challenge. And it perfectly sets the tension in the room before anyone has even said a word.
Right, so you have to understand, this review, it's not just another meeting on the calendar. This is the culmination of 13 weeks of incredibly intense work. This is where Janita's strategy, her leadership, and the entire architecture she's built are about to be put under the microscope. This is pretty much her final exam.
And in the room, at the table, you've got these four totally different perspectives. You've got Colin, her boss, and he's all about compliance. You have Constance, the expert assessor, who sees right through everything. There's Dev, the new lead designated safeguarding lead, representing all the technical work. And then there's Janita, whose job it is to somehow hold all these different realities together and steer them towards one coherent outcome.
And Constance, true to form, she immediately goes for the weak spots. I mean, her questions are surgical. She's not asking about the day-to-day stuff, no. She's digging into governance, legal standing, sustainability, the really hard stuff. Each question is testing the very foundations of the project. And Janita, she's on the spot, having to answer for gaps that, let's be honest, she didn't even create, navigating all this institutional politics in real time.
Okay, then it's Dev's turn. And you know, this is a huge moment. The Dev who stands up to speak is not the same person we met at the beginning of this journey. Not at all. He presents the network not just with knowledge, but with this quiet confidence of the person who actually built the thing. He owns it. And get this, he uses the ADKAR map, that's the model for the human side of change, to explain not just the network's design, but his own development. This is so much more than a presentation. It's proof. It's a demonstration of how much he's transformed.
You know, Dev's growth didn't just happen by accident. It was a direct result of Janita's very deliberate leadership. So let's do that now. Let's pull back the curtain and actually look at the theoretical tools Janita was using. And she wasn't using them like some rigid script, but more like a diagnostic lens, you know? A way to really understand the system and guide her people through it.
So here we see Janita's own internal audit using Kotter's 8-step change model. And what's so key here, what's so important, is that she's not just ticking boxes to prove she succeeded. No, she's using it to paint a really honest picture of what's actually going on. She's brave enough to say, hey, creating urgency, that was thin. The guiding coalition, nominal. But see, this isn't about failure. It's about a super precise, clear-eyed diagnosis of what was possible in the time she had and what wasn't.
And this? Oh, this is just brilliant. This perfectly shows the predictive power of another tool she had in her kit, ADKAR. Look at how the model just perfectly explains the different results at two of the schools. At Coppice Lane, where you had all 5 elements in place, boom, you get true, deep embedding. But at Riverside, the leadership just didn't have that desire for change. So what do you get? Functional compliance. Basically just going through the motions. So the model didn't just describe what happened after the fact, it pretty much predicted it from the get-go.
So after all that, what was the actual outcome of this super tense review? Well, it wasn't a simple win or loss, not by a long shot. Turns out, success here is way more complex, with 2 very different, but both totally correct ways of looking at it.
All right, so on one side, you've got Colin, her boss. And from his point of view, it's a total success. Why? Because it checked the box. This is exactly what the LA asked for. That's a very transactional way of seeing it, right? But then you have Constance, the expert, and she sees something else entirely. She sees a sound architectural foundation. But she also correctly points out that really anchoring this in the culture, well, that's a multi-year project. And here's the thing, they're both right. Janita's real challenge, and her incredible skill, is being able to understand and hold both of those realities at the same time. And that brings us to what you might call the honest balance sheet of the project, what this system actually produced. On one side of the ledger, you have real achievements, a working network, peer reviews that are actually catching things, a solid framework. But on the other side, you have the documented limitations, those thin Kotter steps, the fact that Riverside only ever got to compliance. And that's the point, isn't it? Real leadership isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about this kind of honest accounting.
Okay, and this really brings us to the heart of the whole story.
Because you see, the biggest, most important outcome of Janita's leadership, it wasn't that 47-page document she wrote. It was something so much more valuable, something that will last.
I mean, this quote from Dev, it just says everything. This is the big aha moment for him, the climax of his whole journey. He finally gets it. Leadership isn't about giving up the work you're an expert in. It's about learning how to lead from that expertise, but in a totally new way. It's about creating the space and the structure for other people to succeed.
And right there, that's Janita's real legacy. Think about it. Transactional management gets you documents. It gets you compliance. But transformational leadership? That actually changes people. It builds their capacity. The framework document is just the artifact. Dev is the change. His growth is the real lasting proof of Janita's success, something that will be there long after this project is over. So when we look back across this entire series, we can finally see the complete toolkit that Janita has built for herself. It started with ethical clarity, right? That was being an agent, not just a rule follower. Then came power literacy, really understanding authority, not just working inside it. Then motivational understanding, reading what other people need, not just assuming they're like you. After that, cultural diagnosis, being able to read the whole organization. And finally, what we saw here, systems thinking, building the conditions for success, not just chasing outcomes. And you see, this isn't just a list of skills, this is an integrated, sophisticated way of leading.
So we're going to end with this really powerful reflection from Janita herself. She points out that making the correct strategic choice, the one that has the most leverage, well, the arithmetic is right, but it doesn't always feel right. A lot of the time, it means you have to resist that urge to just jump in and do the hands-on work yourself, the work that feels so satisfying. So I want to leave you with this question for all of us, really. In our own work, when have we been in that position? When is the correct choice, the strategic choice, not the one that feels good? And more importantly, what does it take to make that tough choice anyway?